I'm presenting to both combined branches today, 320 and 332. And the name of my presentation I decided on was A Canvas for Engineering. So the title, I thought about what I wanted to make the mission statement for this presentation, and I landed on this picture. This was a picture I took when we were out doing flight tests with Evan, Russell, and my intern team. And what I believed it represented was a conversation I had with my mother. We were out looking, and she does not like drones. She doesn't like technology. She hates her Amazon Alexa. And I said, well, why, Mom? And she's just like, well, when I look up in the sky, I see a canvas, I see a landscape, and I see a painting. And when I look at that, I don't want to see it tainted by a drone. I don't like that. And so I took this picture during the flight test, and what we see is a drone. And I was inspired by this by seeing what is that drone or UAS, what kind of patterns does it take in the sky? What does it do to communicate with the public down below? So that's what I chose for the background for this slide, and it really got me thinking about how we perceive drones in the sky. So I'm going to give you a background about how, well, first I'll give you my objectives here. So I chose this little gear slide thing, and that's because all of my objectives work together. None of them are really separate. So I've chosen this summer to provide insight for the public into UAS operations by promoting knowledge and awareness of safety technologies, build bridges between engineering, the how, and public perception through the arts, the why, and accelerate transformation in our workforce by increasing connectivity and collaboration. So this looks like a mess, but I'm going to go through this piece by piece as I work my way through this presentation. This is where I landed here over in the Safety Critical Avionics branch. I was introduced to this through Dr. Martin Outdehog, who was my research advisor, as well as Evan Dills and Russell Gilbert, who I worked under. They work under here in the Safety Critical Avionics branch. And I was approached with working under either Locked In or Safeguard as these two projects. And I could work on both, but I really took foothold in Safeguard. I was really interested in that. From there, we were presented with this digital referee project, which was in joint with SAND, and I became a main point of contact between SAND and the Office of Strategic Analysis, Communication, and Business Development, or OSAC-B. They were also looking to put together an AR visual for part of the SAND project, in which I took part in creating this WebXR team. I assembled part of that team. They also asked me to help with this Oshkosh display, and that's what I'll start with jumping into, and I'll give you some details on that. So this ties into Objective 1, providing insight for the public into UAS operations by promoting knowledge and awareness of safety technologies. So accomplishments that I've taken so far towards those steps. I engineered LED lights and a power circuit for the digital referee for SAND. The SAND project is kind of this public outreach project that the engineers and the OSAC-B is working in part here. The idea is that you've got this drone flying around, and it uses Safeguard to communicate whether the drone is in bounds or out of bounds, in a safe zone or not in a safe zone, but it does it on a football field. And we're pulling in commercial vendors to put Safeguard on their drones, and they're setting up sort of a competition for it. So here's a potential kind of field layout. This would be the drone. So we set up this Safeguard box on the drones with lights. We set up like a ground station to be at the judges table. So it's kind of a public outreach event to promote Safeguard out to commercial vendors, as well as my particular interest, the spectators, the public is invited to it as well. I took a particular interest in the LED lights. What colors are they going to be, and what kind of message does that convey about the safety of the drones? So with the help of Matt, Nathan, and Austin, we put together, this is just a simple little box. I wanted to get a video on here, but unfortunately we didn't get a chance to do that. But here it is mounted on one of the UAS vehicles. And those strips would actually be wrapped around the box, not just hanging there. And we consulted the guidelines for the use of color and HTC displays, courtesy of Lisa for providing me guidance to where that research lies, about particularly what colors to use for that. We base it off of what is already being used for cockpits. So I also provide technical expertise and serve as a critical communication bridge between OSAC-B, the AR/VR team, and Safeguard. So how do we wrap this all together into one clean, neat package? So furthermore, this is part of the Oshkosh display. I had this team of other interns in OSAC-B come to me and they're like, we got to make this display for Oshkosh. How are we going to do this? We've never engineered anything before. And I collaborated with these students, and this is what we ended up creating. We've got this toy drone. The toy drone flies in this box, and it uses photo sensors to, the lights flash if the photo sensors detect it. So it gives this little play idea of what Safeguard would do. So why is this important? This is something that goes on to a convention. So the public gets to interact with Safeguard. It kind of brings them closer to Safeguard. It's no longer up in the air, some mystical thing that they don't know what it does. So even though this isn't Safeguard itself, it's got the Safeguard branding on it. It's to promote the sand competition, and they get to be a little closer to it. And we kept the box open. It runs it on an Arduino. A lot of young students in like middle school, high school who might be playing around with this get to see that this thing is powered by Arduino. And in fact, part of Safeguard, the lights that we're using for Safeguard is powered by Arduino. So they get to see like, hey, this is what, this comes a little closer to me. This technology is a little less mystifying. And they get to play with it hands-on. And they ended up, I just got word this morning that it was successful at Oshkosh and that the kids got to play around with it, and they put little 3D printed toys in the middle of it, and they got to like zoom the little drone on a stick like in and out, and they got to play around with what Safeguard does. So I also participated in Uas Flight Test over center, including a demonstration for visitors from the FAA. I'm participating in conversations with the general public and gain feedback about the current standing with UAS vehicles, and this was so important to me. So here is an FAA flight test day. This is Matt and Nick out with the drone, and here's Russell. And over here, this is where I was talking. This is a little teddy bear on a drone, and I say a picture tells 1,000 words, just like this background does. I lived with an 8-year-old this summer, and he gave me this little teddy bear. And then he was asking me, what do you do with drones? Are they scary? And so I decided to put the bear on the drone and take a picture, and I showed him. He goes, did it ride on the drone? And he was so intrigued by this. And again, just kind of bringing drones closer to the public, so they're a little less mystifying. And I also had conversations out at Yorktown Beach with people. And someone was like, oh, you work at, I had like a NASA shirt on, and they're like, oh, do you work at NASA? And I was like, yeah. And, you know, I got a lot of comments about how fearful people were of drones, and taking that into consideration about how I do work with the drones and how I engineer it. So this is what I've covered so far. Next, I'm going to go into my work over here in the Autonomous Integrated Systems branch. I had an awesome opportunity to be able to combine my work here over into the Autonomous Integrated Systems branch. I was introduced to a tractor, and I said, I want to put virtual reality into that. I had the opportunity to explore human-robot trust. It was something that I didn't think a whole lot about, but suddenly realized that's where my brain belonged, and that's where I want to do my master's research. I got to attend in-space assembly meetings and open up my brain to those perspectives. I did work with the Sherpas over with Ed, and the engineering design studio, the Avarsys work, the AR spacesuit. That was some really cool stuff. Data visualization, which I've had some previous experience on. So, objective 2, build bridges between engineering and the public perception through the arts. How are we going to do this? So, first off, I introduced virtual reality game design tools and techniques to the Tractor Beam project. This is me with the Vive system. And I've set up plenty of VR systems in the past, but never before had I tried to do it on Linux. So I configured and installed the HTC Vive system down the hall here, and I established that environment on Unity 2018.1.6, and it's compatible across the Vive and Ubuntu. That's awesome. Unfortunately, I didn't get the controllers to work, but the headset does. And I'll talk about what that enables us here in a second. So I collaborated with the AR/VR enthusiasts across the center, the action heroes, the engineering design studio, the Sherpas team. All these people are so fascinated with VR. Why? Okay. So I also integrated research with Lisa Levy and other interns on concepts involving psychology, human factors, gaming, and engineering. And this included studies on the concept of flow, which is what's shown over here. Politeness in human-machine and human-human interaction. And I continued to write personal blog articles, and I analyzed video games. These are the ones that I particularly played this summer, but many more. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you start to put video games into the world of engineering, it opens up a whole new tool set. Video games are very emotional, they're very expressional, much as a guitar or a musical instrument opens the world for a person to open their emotions to the world. Virtual reality can help us understand things such as artificial intelligence, human-robot trustworthiness, because they're so story-driven, and we've been comfortable with them for years, for decades. We can understand what they do, and we become very attached to them, and we're comfortable with them. It's something that the public is very comfortable with and has been for decades. So we can use that as a platform, and we can use that as a tool to connect us to understanding augmented reality and virtual reality and artificial intelligence. So over here, when we start to talk about flow is something we've understood in psychology for quite a few years when it was introduced by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I tried to practice that, I promise. What the idea of flow is that if you become too bored in a game, you start to get out of the flow zone, and you would give up your work. You would give up and you would stop playing the game. If you become too challenged, then you would also give up on the game. This concept can be applied further into artificial intelligence. If you become too bored doing what you're doing, you would want to give up your control to the artificial intelligence. If you become too challenged and if something's too hard, again, you would give up your control to the artificial intelligence. So as you can see, this idea of flow was originally applied to psychology. It's further been applied to game theory, and now we can further apply it to artificial intelligence. So as you can see, video game design and this kind of artistic video game design is a bridge into understanding artificial intelligence, much as, again, music is a bridge for us to translate our emotions into the world understanding them. So these are ideas that I'm formulating and that I plan to explore more in my work that I started to explore through my double majors in engineering in the Games Research and Design Lab, and all the way up here into my work in Virginia Tech into my master's research. So in the Media Solutions branch, I had the chance to work on this foyer display, and we also teamed up with the Sherpas to do that, and it really allowed me to encapsulate these ideas and what does it mean to work for NASA, and how do I push that forward and really take all of these little pieces, and how do I tie it all together and tie it into the overall NASA mission. This is the foyer display I worked on. I got to design this little story, including NASA's main missions, and this is one of the potential designs that they're going to be using for the foyer display. I utilize these transformative spaces and groups. This is a group of people from all across Center that teamed up to work on this foyer display. It wasn't just one person from one branch, it was all of these different branches, and that's what made this so transformative. So it's transformative work, different people, different departments. It's no longer one person sitting at one desk or one group sitting in one office. It's people from all different offices. But this allowed me to make critical connections between multiple areas of research, including safeguards, sand, fit to fly, and a tractor. As you can see, this all kind of leads back into the makerspace. So when I worked on the Oshkosh display, the little light up thing with the drones, I did that in a makerspace, and that's really what the makerspace advocates, is people from all over working. And I had the chance to inject Jill Marlowe's ideas of transformation into exactly how we work. We no longer work in little desks. we work all over. And that's really what I took out of the summer. I worked all over. And I injected my ideas really across center. And it all kind of came back into the makerspace. So again, this kind of reinforces how I collaborate. Accelerate transformation in our workforce by increasing connectivity and collaboration. Back at Ohio University, this is a picture of me in the Media Arts Lab showing a professor from the Avionics Engineering Center virtual reality for the first time. And it was introducing an art concept to an engineering professor. This is a video. I don't think it'll work though. This is Dr. Martin experiencing virtual reality for the first time, and it really brought all of these engineers in the lab together, and we just started thinking in this whole new realm, whoa, we're all in VR for the first time, and it allowed us to put what we were doing with drones into this new perspective. We've been working with drones for decades, and we had never seen it in VR before. Again, that takes me forward into my future goals to continue work at NASA and NASA Langley, to integrate that with my work at Virginia Tech and into my own professional development. So, future goals, I'd like to influence grade lab research in the Autonomous Integrated Systems Research branch. That was something I did at Ohio University, the Games Research and Immersive Design Lab, that I think really influenced the way I think. And there is a ton of potential in that lab. And I think if we could get some interns involved in this lab, they could really thrive, and I think it could really push forward some of what we do here. They could really introduce a lot of game design concepts and technology and art concepts. They really integrate that. That's what we do at the Grid Lab. I'd like to also integrate upcoming Virginia Tech Master's research with human-computer interactions at NASA Langley, as mentioned before. I want to continue involvement with the SAN competition at Virginia Tech. I've got a contact with Kevin Korchersberger. And I want to continue various methods of outreach, as I have done for years. So my big goal for next summer, or if I continue on as some other research or pathways internship of some sort, is to develop a VR/AR content to use as an instrument for translating technology into a language for the public. Specifically, I developed this mock-up Uas Location Mapping App. So it would be an augmented reality app that's compatible with a Fit to Fly program that Gary Qualls is working with out of the makerspace, that would enable users to visualize safeguards geofence, as well as the location status of UAS vehicles. It would help set some standards here for how we visualize where UAS vehicles are in global space. It would also give users some sort of interact button to make them feel a little bit closer to the drone, again, demystifying that concept of where drones are in the sky. And then I also want to say some special thank yous, especially to Lisa. She always made time to mentor me. To Danette Allen for enabling me the opportunity to work collaboratively and in a hybrid environment. For Evan Dill for demonstrating what it meant to be a Bobcat, but over here at NASA. And for Russell, he always mentored me at OU, and he never stopped doing that once we came here. To Nicole, she always gave me candy, crafts, and a reminder to be true to myself. And for Carol, she always kicked me back into shape when I was slacking off. Matt, Austin, and Nathan, you guys always challenged my perspectives, and I really appreciated that. Eric and Keith, they gave me such strong support, and they were very interactive with the work that I did here. And Jill Marlowe, she gave me a lot of inspiration for what I did here, and to remind me to reach above and beyond from where to keep pushing forward. So, thank you. Oh, certainly. I particularly applied this presentation and catered it to drones because that is what I worked on this summer. I was introduced through the Safety Critical Avionics branch, and that's also where my background lies. But I certainly see, that's the thing, there's countless applications, and that's part of the struggle with this, is that I think VR struggles to take a foothold, or augmented reality rather, both, struggles to take a foothold in any one area. So that's why I decided to take a foothold here. But certainly, to answer your question, yeah, I see it taking off in aviation in general, so many sciences. And I wish it was taking off even more than it is now.